my most amazing artists. Today we're going to create a snowman in the style of surrealist artist Rene Magritte. So we are going to need a Sharpie, some paper, crayons, watercolors if you have them. If you don't, you can always use markers and water, or you can simply color in your picture with the materials that you have. So let's learn a little bit about the artist that we're going to be creating, inspired by. So you can see that this is a photograph of one of the art pieces that Rene Magritte has created, and he was considered a surrealist, which is kind of a strange or wacky view of life that kind of resembles dreams. So he would oftentimes dress like an everyday man wearing a black suit and a bowler hat, and many of his paintings are famous for these depictions. So one of his most famous artworks, The Son of Man, shows a man's face covered by an apple, and we're going to do that with our snowman today. So let's go ahead and get started, shall we? All right, so with your paper, you're going to create your very own surrealist snowman. So it's pretty simple in terms of our composition. So I'm going to just start by using my Sharpie and kind of outlining what I intend to create. So the snowman is the main focus. So I'm going to start by creating, kind of looks like these parentheses for my snowman. And now I'm just going to create kind of a wavy line down to what will end up being my horizon line down here at the ground, separating the ground from the sky. All right, now that I kind of have my basic shape, I'm going to put in that famous bowler hat, which is simply a straight line across. Then I'm just going to make two small vertical lines like this. I'm going to make another parallel line going straight across and just put a half of a circle, boop, right on top. Excellent. Now we're going to talk about some of the other pieces of Magritte's work that make him kind of one of those famous painters. He's got the apple, and he's also got this red tie. So we're going to include both of those in our picture as well. So I'm just going to make right in the center here a nice big red apple. So there's my little line here. I'm going to put a stem on it. You can even we're going to add a little bit of shading and coloring as we go along. That's for the face. Now we're also going to create this necktie. So right in the center of the necktie is this kind of knot shape, which is a little bit like a rounded rectangle. I'm going to create a line that comes from here and then another line that comes from the neck over to here. So it's got a little bit of a triangle and the same thing on this side. So that's kind of where my necktie would go. Now I'm going to make a line down and a line down. And I'm going to make the letter V to finish it off. So here is the necktie. Now we're also going to add these kind of stick arms. I like to keep them kind of wiggly in their shape and also kind of a light pressure. So that way it kind of has that branch-like look like you would find in nature. And there's my overall composition. Now let's talk about color. There's a lot of different things you can do. You can use a combination of materials. You can use things such as crayons mixed with Sharpie or adding in some watercolor. So I'm going to do a little bit of that. I'm going to start off by coloring some of these solid shapes like the bowler's hat, that nice black color. So you can use if you have crayons, oil pastels, just to make sure that it has a nice solid and filled in look to it. So there's my nice black bowler's hat there. I'm going to trace over some of those stick arms with some brown, just keeping it light again and just going over that brown. So you can see a little bit of the mixture there. And now I'm also going to color in the apple, of course. Now, typically in Magritte's work, you see a green apple. So I'm going to keep it green, but remember, it doesn't have to be like that in your art, of course. So I'm just going to mostly color on one side, adding a little bit. Remember how we did this with our still life work over here? I'm just going to put some darker on one side and shade it much lighter on the other. And as for the scarf, I'm going to use a little bit of red. So if you have a red handy, here's where you would fill in your red, because he has a red tie. So I like red scarves on snowmen. So this kind of is a good way to include both. All right, perfect. Now let's go ahead and think about how we're going to create the background in our picture. So I'm going to be using my watercolor paint today to kind of add the gray and kind of snowy like background. So I'm going to start off by putting some snow mixed in here. I'm just going to choose kind of a light blue. So I'm mixing in some water with my blue, and I'm just going to kind of lightly outline some of the places where there might be, remember we talked about shadows. So I might do some shadowing below my snowman. You can also do little footprints. Maybe somebody's walked there before. You could have these little footprints kind of walking to your snowman, even in the snow. And again, I'm using kind of the blue because my paper is already white. So I don't want to use more white and not have it show up. So the blue's kind of acting as, you can also use a little bit of gray. That would also make a good snow color. So I'm just gonna fill in some of the bottom of this with my watercolors, and the same thing for the sky. So let's talk about sky as well. Magritte is also famous for his cloud pictures. So I think it would be kind of fun as a nod to that, to create some nice big chunky clouds in the sky up here and fill them in with your white crayon. And you have to press down. You can see I actually broke my crayon. That's okay. But I'm just gonna color in nice and hard. So that way, when I go over it with my wet paint, it will just slide right over the top. So there's a few clouds in here right at the top. So now I'm just going to think about my sky. I don't want it to be the exact same color as my snow. So I'm going to use a really, really, really light blue where you can mix some colors together. And notice I'm just going to paint right over the top of my snowman, over the top of my clouds, not over my snowman actually. And then I'm going to come over here and fill in the space right around my snowman. So here I go. Right around the snowman. And you can again add some shades if you want to make it a little darker in some spots if you want, or you can leave it. I kind of like adding some texture and tone in there, so their values gives it a little bit more interest. Here I go. I'm going to fill in the rest of my picture. Try to keep it horizontal when I paint the sky, because when it dries, it'll have a more realistic effect. So you can see it's pretty light. I might add a few more darker pieces in here and there. But essentially that is your Magritte inspired snowman. Hope you enjoyed it and keep on creating.